All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yoma Daf Yud Beis. First, we learned the whole sugya regarding which homes are mechuyev and which homes are not mechuyev to have a mezuzah. And the Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph made the correlation that homes that are not considered abayis, b'negei din mezuzah, will also not be considered homes concerning the laws of tzaras habayis. In other words, they will not be susceptible to tzaras, which led us into the two tanoim, and it appeared that there is a machlokes tanoim, whether a beis hakneses and a beis hamedrash is mitamin b'negoyim or not, and maybe that's the machlokes, whether a beis hakneses, beis hamedrash is mechuyev in mezuzah or not. That was the first approach, and indeed it's a machlokes tanoim. But then we had two other approaches. And the last approach that we learned, in order for there not to be a machlokes tanoim, whether a beis hakneses or a beis hamedrash is metamed b'negoyim or not, is the Gemara said on top of Daf Yud Beis that it depends if it's a beis hakneses that's built in a krach, in a large city, which means that it's really open to all. It's not like the people that built it are the only people that use it. So therefore, as we quoted the pasuk that we have in Parshas Mitzayda, Uba Asher Loi Habayis, the coin will come to the one to whom the house belongs to him. It doesn't belong to anyone. That house will not be susceptible to Tzumas Tzaras. But Kfarim, if you have a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash that's built in a Kfar, built in a little village, no one goes there. You don't have marketplaces over there. So such a location, says the Gemara, yeah, it's like partners. Everyone built it. Everyone has their part in it. And therefore, that house, that Beis HaMedrash, will be susceptible to Tzumas Tzaras. Now, that's going to lead us today into the big machlokes, whether Yerushalayim was apportioned to Shvatim or not. This is a very important machlokes. And just to limit, at least, the machlokes, as explained some achreinim, that when we entered Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim wasn't chosen right away. So initially, Yerushalayim, like the rest of Eretz Yisrael, was apportioned to Shvatim. And it turns out that the city of Yerushalayim is both, some of it is in the Chelik of Yehuda, and another part of it is in the Chelik of the Shevet Binyamin, Yehuda Binyamin. Question is that now that we established Yerushalayim as the Mokim Asher Yivchar Hashem, and all the Yidden have to go there 3 times a year, Aliyah Haregel. So there are some who hold that is vis-a-vis Aliyah Haregel, we consider Yerushalayim a city that belongs to all of the Jewish people. Now that doesn't mean that the people that built their homes prior to David choosing Yerushalayim as the capital for the Jewish people, it doesn't mean that they lost ownership. What it means, as we'll see, according to the Shita, that Yerushalayim was not apportioned to Shvatim, that they may not even charge rent, not for an apartment, not even for a bed, for the people that come for the regalim for Yom Tovim. When people come there, everyone gets to stay for free. However, they should leave a tip. We're going to learn some interesting nuances about that. Others are of the opinion that we always view Yerushalayim as a city that is apportioned to Oile Regalim. And after this whole discussion, the Gemara is going to go on to discuss exactly how do we install the backup Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And to clarify the issue that we learned this in Shkolim. Really, ideally, a Kohen Gadol is installed, so to say, is upgraded into the office of, into the Kedusha of Kahuna Gedolah by him undergoing 7 days. Each one of the 7 days, we should don him, we should make him wear all of the Shmonim Begadim. And when we still had access to the Shaman HaMishcha, and he should be smeared with the anointing oil. We also learned in Shkolim that that's only a lechatchila, but biddi eved, even him getting dressed only once with the Shmonim Begadim, or being anointed only one day, that also will, so to say, elevate him into the Kedusha of Kahuna Gedolah. But l'chu'ura, this is something that needs to happen before he does the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. So the question will be, what happens if the Kohen Gadol, the original one, did the morning daily avodah when he was still, let's say, the tahara? Then, let's say he became tummy, he became unfit. Now we have to use the backup Kohen Gadol, but we are already up to the unique avodah of Yom Kippur. So he should first be installed as a Kohen Gadol and only then do the avodah. How will we do that? Which will lead us into him wearing the unique gartel of a Kohen Gadol. Question is, does the gartel of the Kohen Gadol differ than the gartel than the Kohen Hadid? Just to clarify the question before, that the Kohen Gadol wore the Shmoyne Begadim, but on Yom Kippur, when he went inside the Kodesh HaKodshim, he did not wear the 8 garments. He only wore the 4 garments that l'chu'ura were similar to the Kohen Hadid. So he's not wearing any unique garb of a Kohen Gadol. However, that will be the whole question, whether what was the gartel of the Kohen Hadid made out of? Was it different than the gartel that the Kohen Gadol wore when he entered the Holy of Holies? We'll have a machlokes about that, which will lead us into another debate. What exactly is done to the garments of the Kohen Gadol after Yom Kippur? The Torah writes in Achrei Mois the words "v'hinicham sham." They should be left there, and we'll see either it means that it may never be used again, or it will mean that it may never be used again on Yom Kippur. And finally, on that Yud Beis, all the way in the Amud Beis, all the way in the bottom, the final question that we will discuss is the following: when we needed the backup Kohen Gadol, so you have Kohen Gadol Reuven, and he became Tamei, let's say, during Yom Kippur. So we install, and Shimon, the new Kohen Gadol, does the avodah. No one debates that when Reuven becomes fit again, the original Kohen Gadol becomes fit again, he goes back to doing the avodah. Question is, what happens now with Shimon? What status will he have? Does he have to abide by all of the unique laws of the Kohen Gadol? Like he cannot marry he cannot even marry an almana. Like when he does the avodah, he has to wear the Shmoyne Begadim. He remains a Kohen Gadol. Or do we say we never allow for there to be 2 Kohanim Gedolim? So when he does the avodah, does he wear Shmoyne Begadim or does he wear Arba Begadim? Does he become a Kohen Hadid? We'll see exactly what's done to him and much more. Let's start Chevron Daf Yud Beis on top of the Amid. Again, the third, as we mentioned, we have a machlokes. It seems that there is a machlokes Tanoim whether a Beis HaKnesses and a Beis HaMedrash is susceptible to Tumas Tzoras. And the final solution is it depends. And this is all based on the pasuk that we have in Mitzvah, where it says regarding the kohen inspecting the home that appears to have this type of leprosy of the homes or tzaras of the homes. Uba asher loi habai is that the kohen goes to the one to whom the house belongs to. In other words, there is ownership to the house. We explained that a shul that is built in a large city doesn't matter if you have 10 people that built it. It has nothing to do with who built it. It has to do with who uses it. So it's self-understood. It's mamish public. It's a public area, public for the Yidden. There's no ownership. That house is not susceptible to Tumas Tzoras. Hadik Farim, if it's built in a small place, in a rural area, in a village, so we know who built it and we know who uses it. So that was the initial approach. Right now, it's considered just like a house that belongs to partners that is susceptible to Tumas Tzoras, even though the loy b'loshen yachid doesn't fit, but that is what we learned on Daf Yud Aleph Amid Beis. Says the Gemara, are you telling me udikfanim udikrachim that shuls in large cities ein metama ben goyim? No, v'hatanya. Again, another pasuk that we have in Parshas Mitzvah. The pasuk there begins v'nosati negat tzoras bebeis eretz achuzaschem. That I will place a negat tzoras. Bebeis eretz achuzaschem. Achuzaschem means in the land of your inheritance. Baruch, you said something? Good. So says the Beraisam, achuzaschem metama ben goyim. Yeah, if there's a part of the Holy Land that was apportioned to individual tribes and then into individual families, etc., that is susceptible to all the laws of Tzoras Habayis. But the Ein Yerushalayim mitama ben goyim. But Yerushalayim is not susceptible, as we spoke out in the intro. This Tana subscribes to the opinion that Yerushalayim is not apportioned to any specific tribe, thus not to any specific family, but it's completely jointly owned by all the Yidden. And something that belongs to all the Jewish people equally is not called achuzaschem. Amar Rebbe Yehuda, who argues with the Tanach, no. Ani lo shamati ela mokoy migdash bilvad. True, he says that the area of the temple, and Bechal, we know that the temple site was specifically purchased by David HaMelech from Aravna, and the money that David HaMelech used was not out of his own pocket, but it was money that was collected from all the Yidden. So true, Harabayis, and therefore all of the temple complex, Tak is not Achuz Aschem, but Yerushalayim is Achuz Aschem. As we'll see in a moment, Rabbi Yehuda subscribes to the concept that Yerushalayim is considered, like all the other cities in Eretz Yisrael, territory that is divided to tribes. It is considered, right, bebeis eretz achuz aschem. So what's the kasha? The kasha is primarily from Rabbi Yehuda. Then you have to work out whether it's a kasha also to the Tanakh or not. But let's go simple. So what is Rabbi Yehuda saying? And also what is implied by the Tanakh, that if Yerushalayim is apportioned, is considered the city that's apportioned to the tribes, then the shuls in Yerushalayim are subject to a tzoras like any other area. Now Yerushalayim you don't have a greater krach than Yerushalayim. We're speaking about any shul in the old city. Which is a big question. So the Gemara answers that we have to amend. It's a braisa, and we get to amend braisas a lot easier than Mishnayos. Ema, that the wording in the braisa is Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Ani lo shamati ela makom mekudesh bilvad. Same concept. First of all, Rabbi Yehuda, that's the ikar of this braisa, holds that Yerushalayim continued to be apportioned to the tribes, specifically, as we'll see, to Yehuda and to Binyamin. Eloma, he argues with the Tanakh dafka because any holy place, the Beis HaMikdash also, but also any shul in Yerushalayim, and therefore really any shul anywhere, a Makkah Mekudesh is not included in the whole dinim of Tumas Tzoras. Okay, so therefore we did not refute the third answer, and now let's speak about this concept of whether Yerushalayim was apportioned or not to the Shvatim. Says the Gemara B'Maiko Miflagi, Tanakh Sover Yerushalayim loy nischalka l'Shvatim. Again, just to make it clear, that it's not that before David chose Yerushalayim, it wasn't apportioned. I know we didn't conquer it until much later on, but so what? But the territory was for sure designated to part Yehuda, part Binyamin. Part Yerushalayim, Yehuda, part of Binyamin. No one debates that. Elama, that once we conquered Yerushalayim, then we said that when Yidden are mechuyev to go to Yerushalayim, which is during the Regalim, at that time, it's considered a city that belongs to all. And the implication will be that you, Taka, had your house. You built your house before David HaMelech conquered the city of Yerushalayim. It's your home. But during the Regalim, you may not charge rent. L'chayda, you got to choose which guest you keep. L'chayda. These details are not spoken over here. You know, like in Crown Heights, Kan Siva, the Hachnos Asarchem there is unbelievable. But you get to choose which guest you want to have in your home. But Ein Sham Bayis, that they came to a Yom Tov, everyone came to the Rebbe, everyone still comes to the Rebbe. People are very, very open homes. But you can't charge, you don't charge for it. At least in Yerushalayim, they were not allowed to charge. That was the word, Lo Nischalka L'Shvatim. However, Rabbi Yehuda Saba, Yerushalayim Nischalka L'Shvatim, says the Gemara that this isn't only the underlying machlokes of the Braisa that we just learned, which is focusing primarily on Tumas Tzoras, but this is explicitly debated. The Tanya, the Tanakh of this Braisa clearly holds that Yerushalayim continued to be a city that is apportioned to the Shvatim, and specifically who had the merit to have Yerushalayim in its chelik to Shvatim, Yehuda and Binyamin. And not only that, it's amazing that the boundary between Chelkoi Shel Yehuda and Chelkoi Shel Binyamin went through the temple complex. Some of the Beis HaMikdash, as we'll see, the eastern part of the Beis HaMikdash was Bechelkoi Shel Yehuda, is Bechelkoi Shel Yehuda. According to this Tanach, it remained that way always. The western part of the Beis HaMikdash is Bechelkoi Shel Binyamin, and that will explain a detail regarding how we built the Mizbeach, as the Braisa writes. The Harabayis and the Lishkois and the Azoros, that's Ezras, Noshim, Ezras, Anoshim, Ezras Kohanim, right? That all of that, that's the eastern part, that's in the Chelik of Yehuda. Now don't forget, guys, that the Mizbeach is built in the Ezras Kohanim. But as we'll see, the Ezras Kohanim was part Yehuda and part Binyamin. So let's go now to the west. The Ulam, the chamber before the Heichal, Ubeis Kodshkochim. However, continues the Braisa that Urutsuya Hoisa Yoitze Mechelka Shel Yehuda v'nichneses lechelka Shel Binyamin uba Hoya Mizbeach Banui. This is a statement that without Rashi, you mamish understand it wrong. The Braisa is not saying that there's a certain strip of territory from Yehuda that went into the Chelik of Binyamin, upon which the Mizbeach was built. No. The Mizbeach, my friend, is built fully on the Chelik of Binyamin. However, these pictures do not do justice. These pictures won't help you. What I want to say is the following, and we don't have to know the details right now. We're going to learn this extensively in Kachim, that the lowest part of the Mizbeach, which is called the Yesoid, the base, that protruded the most from all the other higher parts of the altar, there was actually a full base, a full Yesoid on the northern side of the Mizbeach. There was a Yesoid that went across the entire western side of the Mizbeach. But when it came both to the eastern part of the Mizbeach and to the southern part of the Mizbeach, there was taka one amma at its corner, but the vast majority of the east and the south did not have a base. So it was like a little bit asymmetric. And why was it that way? And the answer is because since the area of the Mizbeach wasn't fully Bechelko Shel Binyamin, the eastern and the southern extremity part of the Mizbeach, that was Bechelko Shel Yehuda. And Binyamin did not want for the Mizbeach to be built in any place other than in his Chelik. So in order for the entire Mizbeach to be built Bechelko Shel Binyamin, the base needed to be, so to say, lopsided or not symmetric. And furthermore, he wanted, his desire of having the Mizbeach in his Chelik was so strong that he felt pain about it. And he wanted it, Levala, to swallow all of it in his territory. And he felt that, and he desired that, and he davened for that every day. And that's the meaning of the pasuk in Zois HaBracha, that choifev olav. Choifev, many people think it means to hover, to hover. Yeah, but it means more that he was agonizing about it. He was looking on it. He was concerned about it. When? Kol hayom. It means his desire of having the Mizbeach in its entirety and his chelik was so strong that not only did he merit for that which he desired to be fulfilled, but God gave him something even more. What did God give him even more? You know, we take it as a given that the Aron HaKodesh was placed in the Kachei Kachim, which is in the westernmost part of the temple. Why wasn't the Kachei Kachim placed on the eastern part? Why wasn't the Aron HaKodesh placed in the eastern part? Because of Binyamin's desire to have the Mizbeach in his Chelik. So therefore, Lefikach Zacha Binyamin at Tzadik and Venase Ushpezichon Legevura. He also became the exclusive host to the presence of God, which is through the Aron HaKodesh. It's beautiful. He wanted something, God gave him what he wanted, and he gave him something more than what he wanted. And Bachlal, the whole machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban, as Chassidus explains, as the Rebbe explains, what's the ikar of the Beis HaMikdash? Is it the Mizbeach? Is it our avodah Mulmata Lomayla? Or is the ikar place of the Beis HaMikdash the place where the Shechina rests, which is the place of the Kodesh Kachim, Mulmayla Lomata? You know what? Binyamin was called Tzadik Tachten. His avodah was Milmata Lamayla. He was zoicha that even the godliness Milmayla Lamata also was exclusively in his chelik. And that's the meaning of the pasuk that the godliness, that the Shechina rested in between his shoulders. Ubein Kesef of Shachim. Okay, Bekitza, what do we see? Clearly, the fact that we are speaking about in whose chelik was the Beis HaMikdash and how the Mizbeach itself ended up being fully in the chelik of Binyamin, like we explained, because we did not build a Yesoid equally in all the sides. Obviously, we're speaking about the Beis HaMikdash that was only built after David conquered Yerushalayim. It's the Charaya that we view the Makim HaMikdash in a portion to the Shvatim, Yehuda and Binyamin. And therefore, Yerushalayim always continues to be an area viewed as a city that is Nischalka l'Shvatim. And however, the following Tana, Sava Yerushalayim, Loi Nischalka l'Shvatim, the Tanya. And that's the rule, that's the base of the rule, that Ein Maskirim Batim Yerushalayim, that when people are Oile Regel, you may not rent out homes. Why? Lefisha Eina Shalahem, because the owner doesn't really own it. Like we explained, he owns it during the year, but not during Regel. Furthermore, Rabbi Lazar, Berab Tzadok, or Berab Shimon Oimer, not only may he not rent out an entire dira, Aflei Mitois, can't rent Simerin, you can't rent Betin, you can't rent anything. However, there is something else, that even when you host a guest pro bono, it's only etiquette for the guest to leave a tip. Lefikach Oiris Kachim. When people went there, they brought kachei kalam. The hides of kachei kalam belong to their owners, and they have value. So balei ushbezichlen noitlin oisan bezroya. They take their tip b'koyach. So it's not really that you're giving the tip, but it's more like, since they can't charge rent because of this Tana Shita that Yerushalayim loin is chalka l'shvatim during the regel, so they could forcibly take something of value. And Amar Abaye Shmami, no, why can they take it b'zroya? Because really it would have been the right thing to do to begin with. If there is no inyan b'chal to leave a tip, then they would not have the right to take it b'zroya. That's almost like taking rent. No. That's that I am, that orach ara, that it's the etiquette, lemishbak inish, that a person should leave by his host, either his gulfa, his jug of wine, or umashcha, or his hide, le'oishpize. So since it's anyways the right thing to do, and they were not allowed to charge rent, so therefore they were allowed to take it b'koyach. Okay. So at Khan, we backed up, we substantiated, we did not refute the third and the final resolution that we had on top of Daf Yud Beis, two braises, is a Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash susceptible to Tumas Sodas or not? So we said the Krachem and the Kfarim. We were unable to refute it from the braiso Avachuzaschem, Tanakam, and the Chachamim, V'chulei, but now we're not letting up yet. Again, insist the Gemara, Ut Kfarim, mi metama ben Goyim? No. V'hatanya, which even if it's from a Kfar, and we know exactly who uses it. But think about it, guys. How do you look at a shul? Even if the only people that use it are its builders, you're living in a village. Do you have your part in the shul? And the Bryce is going to say that we don't never view a shul that way. A shul is always considered everyone's property. Even if it's not like a house of a partner. It's not like two partners is me and you. And it says in a Bryce that la'achuza, again a pasuk in Parshas Mitzvah, means that from when are we even susceptible to the dinim of Tumas Soras? First of all, all of this only went into, first you needed to conquer the land. And then just conquering the land, which took 7 years, was not enough to activate the susceptibility of Tumas Soras. Even Kavshu Aisha, but if Eloi Cholkol Shvatim, then it's not even Shaykh. And furthermore, even after they divided the large territories to each piece of land to one shevet, but what happened after that is that each shevet needed to then subdivide it to their families. But the loichol kol beisavos, still not shaykh, nothing is susceptible yet. And furthermore, that even when chol kol beisavos, and however the system worked, it was already determined which land will go to you. But before you are aware of it, before you can discern, before you recognize your chelik, nothing is susceptible to Tumas Soras. But minayin, that the dinim of Soras does not yet apply. And here this Brisa quotes the pasuk that we had on Daf Yud Aleph from the base of this entire topic, where it says, "Uba asher loy habayis," taiches the Brisa misha meyuchad loy, yatzu elu she'ein meyuchadim loy. Which means, even though legally it was already determined that beautiful home will belong to you, belongs to you. If you don't know about, if you're not aware of, if you don't recognize your chelik, there's no dinim of Tumas Soras yet. So this Bryce is basically saying, based on this, that a Beis HaKnesses, you don't know which part belongs to you. And it's not like a partnership. It's not about how many people use it. A Beis HaKnesses is not at all meyuchad loy. That's the understanding of the Gemara. Beautiful way. A shul belongs to all the Yidden. I'll go even more than that. People have makim kavuas. Maybe that's also the meaning of the Gemara. You can't even have a place to say this is mine. You can have a nice social understanding. I'll sit here. You're nothing wrong with that, but it's not yours. It's not yours, and therefore it never will be susceptible to Tumas Soras. So here we have Aitir Akasha. So Ella must be, indeed, the third answer is refuted, that Mechavrta, the right answer, the correct answer is like we answered above, and really we had two answers. Number one is the first answer, a Machloikas Rameir and the Chacham. It's like a Machloikas Tanoim. If it's Chayv Mezuzah, susceptible to Tzaras. Not Chayv Mezuzah, not susceptible to Tzaras. And the other answer was the answer that it depends, that if the Beis HaKnesses also has a residential quarter, makes a lot of sense. So because of it having a base dira, it's like going to be chayv b'mezuzah l'kula alma, as it will be susceptible to tzoras. Beautiful. With this, we conclude this entire topic, and now we go on by the 2 dots to the next din in the Mishnah. And that next din in the Mishnah is L'Kula Alma. We're not speaking about the backup wife. Oh, I'm sorry. No, the backup wife. A backup wife is a machlokes tanoim in the Mishnah. We're not there yet. We're speaking about whether we have to have a backup kohen gadol. Why would you need a backup kohen gadol? Because maybe the kohen gadol will become unfit during Yom Kippur. So Maskinu like kohen acher says the Gemara like this. Pshit, that's good. It's clear that if ira boy psul koydem taman shel shachar, that if the original kohen gadol became unfit, let's say he had two maskeri before the taman shel shachar, what's the advantage of that? Doing the avodah that's not unique for Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, like bringing the morning tamid, was not done with 4 linen garments. No, it was done with the normal shemaina begadim, which is great, because like this, we get to be mechanech, we get to install the new kohen gadol in his position before he begins the avodah that can only be done by a kohen gadol, the avodah of Yom Kippur. And like we spoke out, how are you mechanech a kohen gadol? Lechatchila, during something that was similar to the Shivas Yemei HaMeluim, that's lechatchila. But if not, I don't know if that, I don't know, I said shkolim in the intro. I don't know if that was shkolim or if it was Yoma. We're so close up. But we just learned the sugya. And b'diavad, like we mentioned, even if only one time he wears the shmeina begadim, or only one time the shaman mishcha, and obviously this whole Gemara is going by Sheni where there was no shaman mishcha, and that we did learn for sure in shkolim because Yoshiyah HaMelech hid it. So we get to have him wear the shmeina begadim at least once while he's doing an avodah before he begins the unique avodah of going into the Holy of Holies, the various times that we'll learn so much about soon, in which he only wore 4 linen garments, but he's already a kohen gadol. Problem is, the question is, the inquiry is, Ella, what happens if irawei psul achar tamen shel shachar? In other words, the original kohen gadol did everything that's done with the shmeina begadim. Now we are up to the part of the daily avodah in which the kohen gadol only wears the 4 begadim. And the premise of this question is that the 4 begadim, the 4 white garments that the kohen gadol wears in that specialist time of Yom Kippur are exactly like the begadim of the kohen hedyot. That's the premise of the question. So how are you mechanech him? Wouldn't you need for him first to be a kohen gadol and only then to do the avodah? Because the avodah can only be done by a kohen gadol. So no problem. That's the answer. But so a very beautiful daf. Now, guys, like this, let's make a few things clear. That the kohen gadol's avneit during the year was made out of shatnes is not debatable. That's a pasuk in the Torah. Shatnes means that it had linen and it had wool. And the wool was dyed tcheles, which is why the Torah just says tcheles. We know there was wool. No one debates. Number 2, no one debates. When the kohen gadol went into the Holy of Holies, during that part of the avodah, when he wore only 4 white garments, the belt that he wore was a special Yom Kippur belt. Why? Because the garments that the kohen gadol used when he went into the Holy of Holies was purely linen. So the kohen gadol wore an avneit, a belt that was not like the belt that he wore the rest of the time, that had in it wool. This had no wool in it. The question is, what was the belt of a kohen hedyot made up during the entire year? See, if a kohen hedyot's belt during the entire year is solely made out of linen, so now when he's going to be upgraded to become the kohen gadol, he mamash continues to wear exactly the same 4 garments, which is why we have a question. Now, if we're going to hold that the belt of a kohen hedyot during the year was just like the kohen gadol's belt during the year, that it had in its shatnes, then we'll have an answer. Even though he's not putting on the golden garments, but if he wore during the year a belt that had in its shatnes, and now that he's becoming a kohen gadol, he's putting on a belt that is unique, because the kohen gadol on Yom Kippur, when he avodas b'fnim, was only made out of linen. Now you're being mechanechim with one unique beggar of a kohen gadol. So Amar Avada Barahavom, that ba'avneit, and that answer is based on the premise that Rav Ada Barahava holds that a kohen hedyot's belt has in its shatnes. So he changes a unique garment. He puts on the garment unique for a kohen gadol on Yom Kippur. So Hani Chalamanda Amar Rav Neitzah kohen gadol Zavnei kohen hedyot. Kohen hedyot always wears shatnes, which means that now that we are promoting him into our kahuna gedolah, he doesn't put on 8 garments, but he has to change his belt, which is what we want. We want for him to put on something, a garment unique to the Kohen Gadol, prior to doing the avodah. But that avnei shel Kohen Gadol, lo yizeh avnei shel Kohen Hedyot. The Kohen Hedyot the entire year also only wore a purely linen gartel, which means that now that we are promoting the backup Kohen Gadol, there isn't any unique beged that he's putting on prior to doing the avodah of the Kohen Gadol. So ma'ikel meimar. And would it not be important for him first to become installed in the office of Kohuna Gedolah? And the only way Bisman Bayesheni was by him putting on the bigadim and only then doing the avodah? Does he not need first to be a Kohen Gadol and then do the avodah? So the two answers. Abaya says, well, you're right. He has to wear a big day Kohuna Gedolah. You know what we do? He puts on for the first time the 8 bigadim. And what does he has to do? It's not just putting it on. It's putting it on. Why would he put it on? He puts it on because that you did the avodah of the Talmud Shal Shachar. And whatever needed to be put on the altar to be burnt is already burning on the altar. But you know what? If you stoke the coals, if you move around the coals on top of the mizbeach, on the pyre, it's going to get those parts of the carbon burnt even quicker. And even though it's something that does not need to be done, but if you do it, you did avodah. So we do an unnecessary but avodah with the Shemaim Begadim. And how do we know that that's even called an avodah? Maybe since it's not necessary, it's nothing. No. The Amar Afuna, Zor, and non-kohen, Shahapach b'tzinoida, that if you turned with a fork, with a shovel, if you turned over the coals that are burning the chalavim that would have gotten burnt regardless, but he did something to speed up their burning, he's chayav misa. Why would he be chayav misa? That's a raya that even though it was not deemed necessary, it's deemed an avodah. So according to that, so that's one answer. So yes, even though we're not up to that part of the avodah, but he has to do something that's called avodah with the Shemaim Begadim. Only this will upgrade him into being a Kohen Gadol, and now he gets to do the avodah unique to the Kohen Gadol of Nai v'Lifnim. However, Rav Papa Amar, another answer. In other words, Rav Papa will challenge the premise. Who told you that first he has to be a Kohen Gadol, and only then he gets to do the avodah, the Yud Beis Amud Beis? This is a concept that we have other times as well, but it's a very deep concept that there are times that two things can happen at the same time. L'mashal, we have a concept of Gita v'yada bo'am ka'achas, right? That if a person who divorces his wife and he puts the get in her property, she's divorced. I call mashakana isha kana baila, so it's not hers. And the answer is that since she's getting divorced, it will be hers. The get and her ownership come at the same time. Rav Papa holds that of course a Kohen Gadol has to be installed in his Kohuna Gedolah for him to do the avodah. But why are you thinking that he has to first, prior to do the avodah, either wear the Shemaim Begadim or at least a gartel that's unique to the Kohen Gadol? Why do you think that he has to first do any avodah, even if it's not necessary, but an avodah? No. He can talk and make no change of garb, no change of garment, according to the Shita that he's anyways always wearing a linen gartel. Nevertheless, the moment he begins to do something unique to the Kohen Gadol, that avodah itself is what installs him into the office. And it doesn't have to come, cause and effect, one before the other, it can come at the same time. It's called avodah mechanchesoi. And miloi tanya, this is a proof that, for example, all of the utensils, kol hakelim she'asa Moshe, before they used those kelim, we sanctified them. What is ideal? How ideally should we sanctify them? Through Mashiach, anointing with the Shaman HaMishcha. Mishichasa Mikadsha. What happens when we no longer have the oil? Mikan ve'elach. So the rule is, Avidas and Mechan Chesam. You don't say first you have to be Mekadosh the Keli, and only then can you use it for Avodah. Same time. Use it for the Avodah. So here also, Hachinami Avidas and Mechan Chesam. Beautiful. Oh, so now that we spoke about this whole question, whether a Kohen Hedyot wears a belt of shatnez or not, and that will really make the difference whether this backup Kohen Gadol will have to change anything during this time of the day. If a Kohen Hedyot wears a shatnez belt, then he does. Because now, as the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, lefnai v'lefnim, he has to put on a purely linen belt. So again, that's the machlekes that we have over here. So Kiyasi Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he said that you should know Avnei Toy Shel Kohen Hedyot is a machlekes between Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon. And Rav Dimi did not remember who said what. He remembers one of them says that the avnet of the Kohen Hedyot was made out of kalayim, made out of shatnes. It was just like the belt of the Kohen Gadol during the year. However, Chad, the other Tana says no, that the avnet of the Kohen Hedyot was not made out of kalayim. It was made out of pure linen. And one of the words that we have for linen that the Torah uses, that we use here, is boots. Okay. Now, the Gemara says, I'll tell you which one said what. Testayim, I'll bring you a raya that the Rebbe hu the Amr Shal Kalayim. How do I know that? Because since it says in a Braisa, Ein Bein Kohen Gadol Kohen Hedyot, the only difference between a Kohen Gadol and Kohen Hedyot is Ela Avnei, so says Rebbe. And what is he talking about? What do you think? You think he's talking about the rest of the year? Why? If it's speaking about the rest of the year, the difference is the Kohen Gadol wears 8 begadim and the Kohen Hedyot wears 4 begadim. Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon is the one that says, Af loy avneit, not even the avneit. And so the Gemara says, what are they referring to? What time of the year are they referring to? Amos. In name of B'shari Ma'is Hashana, what Tuvayik, Kohen Gadol wears B'shmeina, and the Hedyot Ba'arba. Elolav, that is Bryce is speaking about B'Yom Kippurim. And what does Rebbe say? Rebbe says that the difference between the Kohen Hedyot and the Kohen Gadol is the avneit. On Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol goes lefnai v'lefnim, he for sure can only wear linen. And if Rebbe is the one that's saying that the Kohen Hedyot's belt is different, is a raya that Rebbe subscribes that the Kohen Hedyot's belt is made out of kalayim. Beautiful. And Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon holds, no, the Kohen Hedyot always wore a belt only made out of linen. So therefore, not even the avneit, it fits. Says the Gemara, no. From this Braisa, you can't prove that the Rebbe holds that the Kohen Hedyot wore a belt of kalayim, because I could understand the Braisa. Amri the Braisa is not speaking about Yom Kippur. The Braisa is asking that during the rest of the year, of course, the Kohen Gadol wears shmeinim begadim. We're speaking about the 4 begadim that are similar. Are they completely similar or not? Fakert, the Braisa is speaking about the Shari Yemais Hashana. So it's going to chap punkt fakert that the Rebbe who says that there is a difference in the belts has to be the opposite. Rebbe holds that the Kohen Hedyot wears pure linen, which is why Rebbe is saying that there is a difference in the belt. It's going to be the opposite. Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon that's saying not even the avneit. That's because Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon is the one that holds that the Kohen Hedyot's belt is made out of kalayim, which makes his belt just like the belt of the Kohen Gadol. Now, this won't be the maskana. All we are saying is that from this Braisa, you can't prove that the Rebbe is the one that holds that the Kohen Hedyot's belt is made out of kalayim. By the way, just to be aware that, we learn chitas, thank God. And as we're getting better, we have so many beautiful svarim with illustrations, with pictures. We know that the hat of the Kohen Hedyot was not exactly like the hat of the Kohen Gadol. However, it's not considered a substantial difference for this to be mentioned in the Braisa. And let's go back. Says the Gemara, Kiyasa Ravin, this is common that Rav Dimi would come from Eretz Yisrael, and then later Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, and he said that Avneitoi shel Kohen Gadol b'yoyim haKippurim divrei hakol shel butz. The Torah says that when he enters the lefnai v'lefnim, only linen. Shari Yemais Hashana. Everyone agrees that the avneit of the Kohen Gadol for sure was made out of kalayim. Where do we have the machlekes? Ela ba'avneit shel Kohen Hedyot, whether it is b'shari Yemais Hashana, whether it is on Yom Kippur, because I know that we spoke on the Kitzur, there was a machlekes whether machlekes rishonim, whether a Kohen Hedyot is allowed to do the daily avodah of Yom Kippur. And we were medayik from the Rashi in the beginning of the Masechta, when Rashi is speaking about the avodah of the whole Yom Kippur. Rashi subscribes that a Kohen Hedyot Bechlal did no avodah on Yom Kippur, but it doesn't matter. It's not a problem with this Braisa. The question is, what was the avneit of the Kohen Hedyot? And there was only one avneit. What was it made out of? And here, Rav Dimi didn't have it clear. Ravin, look at the words that he has. Sherebi oimer shal kalayim. Clearly. No, we had it right the whole time. Rebbe is the one who holds that the avneit of the Kohen Hedyot was made out of kalayim. Very good. And furthermore, again, another Braisa yet where we see that the Rebbe subscribes to the Shita that the belt of the Kohen Hedyot was made out of Kalayim. What is the Braisa? The Braisa is based on a pasuk that we have in the beginning of Parshas Tzav. The pasuk there writes, "V'lovash hakoyin midoi bad." Mida means a tunic made out of bad, made out of linen. Umichnesei bad, and breeches, pants made out of bad. And it says yilbash al besarai. Now, my friends, the word yilbash is mamish superfluous. The pasuk could have said v'lovash hakoyin midei bad umichnesei bad al besarai. Perfect. Mamish. He wears it on his besarai. There can't be anything chaytzitz between the beged and his besarai. But the word yilbash is extra. That's the Braisa. It says al besarai, so matamod yilbash. Answers the Braisa, even though the Torah only mentioned renegade the Trumas Hadeshin, the Kohen's wearing of the tunic and the breeches, which are Big Day Kahuna. What the pasuk does not mention in the beginning of Tzav are the two other begadim. So the Torah writes an extra word, Yilbash Lahavi, that he also needed to wear the mitznefes, the turban, the hat of Kahuna, and the avneit. Laharamas Hadeshin, these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda, even though these two begadim were not mentioned explicitly in the pasuk. However, it's something else. Of course, that has to be worn. That the word Yilbash is telling you, big day koyin gadol that even after the avodah was done on Yom Kippur, and we have in Parshas Acharei Mois, the Torah writing the words Vihi Nicham Sham, leave the begadim there. And some understand from the words Vihi Nicham Sham that it may never be used by anyone again, and you have to put it to the Genizam. So says Rabbi Doisa that here we have the word Yilbash. This is about a Kohen Hedyot, Trumas Hadeshin. And over there, by the pasuk that says V'hini Chamsham, we have the word Yilbash. So that affects a Gezerah Shava that these begadim could be worn by a Kohen Hedyot. Well, the big day Kohen Kahuna Gedoyla could be worn by a Kohen Hedyot the whole year. Now, Rebbe says that Shtei Shuvas B'Javet. I have two reasons why I cannot accept that which Rabbi Doisa writes. Number one, if this is a Gezerah Shava, so why are you telling me that the begadim of the Kahuna Gedoyla can never be worn by the Kohen Gadol again? Fine, but it can be worn by a Kohen Hedyot. But Avnei Shel Kohen Gadol b'Yom HaKippurim lo yizeh Avnei Shel Kohen Hedyot. It won't work because here you clearly see again that Rebbe holds the gartel of a Kohen Hedyot during the whole year is made out of kalayim. The unique 4 big day lavan that the Kohen Gadol wore lefnai v'lefnim were only made out of linen, including the belt. So Rebbe L'shitase holds you can't say that's the pshat because how can the Kohen Hedyot wear the avneit when the Kohen Hedyot's avneit has to be made out of kalayim? And furthermore, the whole concept of the gadam sheneshtamshu behem kedusha chamura. I mean, they were used in lefnai v'lefnim. Are you telling me Rabbi Doisa teshtamish behem kedusha kala? So Rebbe rejects Rabbi Doisa. Rebbe is also not accepting the Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe has a third opinion. Ella, why did the Torah write what appears to be a superfluous word, Yilbash, l'rabbis es hashechakin? That even though once the begadim are torn, they may not be used. But if they are not torn, but they are a little bit worn out, like how there has to be a line where we say it's not bachavadik, you're serving the Eibishter, where and Hanami, they have to be perfectly clean, etc. So he says that if they are only worn out, they can still be used. That is the Yilbash. You can still wear them. So here again, all we did was we had now 2 proofs already that our initial Havamina is correct. Rebbe holds Avnei Shel Kohen Hedyot is Kalayim, which means that the other one, Rabbi Elazar ben Rav Shimon, he's the one that holds that the Avneit of the Kohen Hedyot was made only out of linen. Now that we mentioned this whole question of whether you can reuse the big day Kahuna Gedoyla, so the Asda Rabbi Doisa Latame, the Tanya, this is the pasuk in Acharei Mois. Vihi nicham sham melame, the Tanakama holds shetu'unim geniza, that they have to have permanent concealment. They may never be used again. However, Rabbi Doisa Omer, no. Vihi nicham sham only means shleishtamish bohen Yom HaKippurim. They may never be used again on Yom Kippur. But as far as you using these begadim during the year for the Kohen Hedyot, gesundheit. And again, that also must mean that Rabbi Doisa also subscribes that a Kohen Hedyot wore a gartel made out of pure linen. So the begadim are the same begadim, so a kohen hedyot can wear it. And I think we shared this when we learned this a few daf ago, that al pi Hasidus, the whole concept of kalayim, of shatnes. And why is it that the kohen gadol, why is it that he was allowed to wear shatnes? And then a koda is that in the world of ishtal shalus, once you go into the spheres, there's chesed and there's gevura, right? As we know, that linen is gevura, that wool is chesed. And even though we have to balance ourselves by going into the world of chesed and balancing out by us going into the world of gevura, but the actual midos themselves can never be mixed together. That's creating chaos. Chesed is in its place, gevura is in its place. You can't mix them together, which is why there's an isur on kalayim. And why is it that the Kula Alma, the Kohen Gadol, didn't have a problem with kalayim? Because once you are connected to a level of higher than ishtalshalos, ultimately Hashem Echad. Everything is godliness. There's a high level that everything is God. Everything is the same. Of course, you can mix it together. So really, that's the machloikas of to what level does the Kohen Hedyot reach? Does he reach to this highest level and then he can wear kalayim? Or no, that differentiates exactly the Kohen Gadol and the Kohen Hedyot. Okay. Now comes the final topic of today. This is so geschmack. Okay, so let's go. We're all learning the Tanach, the part of the Mishnah. There's no debate yet regarding the backup wife. We're speaking about a backup Kohen Gadol everyone subscribes to. What happens when he actually was needed? And like we mentioned in the intro, okay, we got that. And we already resolved that either avodasoy mechanchesoy, or according to what we have in Amud Aleph, that he has to first wear the shmoyne begadim and do an avodah. We made him into a Kohen Gadol. Now what? Don't forget that the disqualification of the original Kohen can be temporary. Could be he had a keri. That's it. He goes to the mikveh, and the next day he's vital, completely pure to do the avodah. What happens to the backup Kohen Gadol? So Tanarabanan, Ira boy psul, if the original Kohen was taka disqualified, and indeed we made use of the backup. Ominu acher tachtov. And now the original Kohen's disqualification was removed, whatever it was. So no one debates who is the Kohen Gadol, the original one. Rishon Chaisel Avidasi. Question is now, what happens to the backup? Says Rabbi Meir, Sheni, Kol, Mitzvahs, Kahuna, Gedoyla, Olaf, he remains a bona fide Kohen Gadol. And my friends, it means a lot. Rashi here, 3 lines under the Gemara, go through various dinim that are unique to a Kohen Gadol. I want to read the Rashi. Mitzvah Kahuna, Gedoyla, Olaf, Zok Rashi, Loi Poireya. Poireya means he may not leave a chup. He may not leave his hair grow excessively long. Number 2, Loi Poidem, that if God forbid, he loses one of his 7 close relatives, and one of the steps that we make right during that period is kriya. There is a unique halacha regarding the Kohen Gadol that he doesn't do kriya the way we do kriya. Number 3, unlike a Kohen Hedyot, the Kohen Gadol ve'enoi metama lekroivim, even to the 7 close relatives, he may not become halachically tummy to them. Another din, all the dinim are here. Umuzad alho almana. Yes, there are restrictions that a Kohen Hedyot has more than a Yisrael, than a non-Kohen, but a Kohen Hedyot can marry a widow. A Kohen Gadol may not marry an almana. That remains on him. And the final one, which is the most relevant because it's the most common, that umeshamesh b'shmoyne begadim. A Kohen Gadol may not do the avodah during the year with anything less than his 8 garments. One says that Rav Meir, he was installed as the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he remains a Kohen Gadol. So tomorrow, the next day, the next week, the next year, whenever he's going to be Zoicha, whether he goes into the lottery, that will be another question that Rashi doesn't mention, because we're going to learn a lot about the pious, about the lottery. The Kohen Gadol never entered the lottery. He did whatever he wanted. Maybe that goes for him also. And we have to understand why Rashi didn't mention it. I'm sure this is a topic that's discussed, but just to focus on the last one on Rashi, that he forever can only do the avodah wearing the 8 begadim. So holds Rabbi Meir. Back in the Braisa. However, Rabbi Yossi clearly agrees with Rabbi Meir on a biblical level. This Yid is a Kohen Gadol. He may never do the avodah with 4 begadim. He's a Kohen Gadol. But, again, the Rishon goes back to his avodah. But Sheni, he rabbinically, even though he is really essentially a Kohen Gadol, he may never do the avodah with Shmoyne begadim. But on the other hand, he can never do the avodah with 4 begadim because he's not a Kohen head yet. He cannot do the avodah anymore. And why is that? Explains the Gemara. First of all, Rabbi Yossi says, just to prove his shita from a story. Rabbi Yossi, the story happened with a Kohen by the name of Yosef ben Elam, who came from Tzipoidim. He was the backup Kohen Gadol. And indeed, on Yom Kippur, She'ira B'Psul, on the original Kohen Gadol. And therefore, this Yosef ben Elam was appointed to do what he was designated to do. He de facto became the Kohen Gadol on a Yom Kippur, Uminu Tachtov. And then the original Kohen Gadol, lost his psul. He became tahor, for example. Amru Chachamim, like we are learning, and the first line, no one debates, that Rishon Chayzel Avidasoi, Sheni, Eina Ra'oi Loyla Kohen Gadol, Loyla Kohen Hadyet. And we explain, Kohen Gadol, why can he not function as a Kohen Gadol? Vishum Eva, clear. Eva is a concept, it's a rabbinic concept, that we don't want to create animosity. We do not want to create jealousy. The original Kohen Gadol was the original Kohen Gadol. Mitamol, there's another Kohen Gadol. And guys, let's remember the whole beautiful story that we have in the beginning of Brachos, right? Of how there was let's speak about Rab Lozer ben Azariah was elevated to become the head of the academy, and then they took turns. But even when they took turns, if you remember Brachos Koyach, remember that it was 3 weeks and 1 week. All of that was because of Eva. We have to be concerned of Eva. And the only way they can resolve it is that he may never do the avodah ever with Shmoyne begadim. On the other hand, why don't we demote him? Maybe, fakert, put on him 4 begadim, just like putting on Big Day Kahuna Gedoyla elevates him to the status of a Kohen Gadol. Maybe there should be a ceremony of demoting him. At least let him do the avodah. Can't do that. Kohen headed mishum ma'ilum hakodesh v'lo meridin. So nishta head, nishta hin. Okay, we have a machlekes. And Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yechanan Daf Yud Gimel, Halacha Kirabi Yoisi. And again, let's get familiar with the top Tosfos. Hilchasel Mashiach. Sometimes the Gemara says, whenever we're speaking about paskening dinim, the Gemara would only pasken a din if it's negei l'maisa. Now, of course, we have to learn the entire Torah. We have a whole Seder Kachim. But paskening dinim regarding how did it function in the Beis HaMikdash? When will this become relevant? Only when Mashiach will come. So there is one opinion that says Hilchasel Mashiach, but one of the approaches of Tosfos is that's a das yachid, and he brings many rayas that we have throughout Shas that yes, Hilchasel Mashiach, and we're paskening the halachas like Rabbi Yossi. He can never do the avodah again. However, even though we pasken like Rabbi Yossi or Moide Rabbi Yossi, that she'im avad of avad abidasi, that if he did do the avodah, so he's not being helpful as far as Eva is concerned. But like we mentioned, Rabbi Yossi is Moide b'shita to Rabbi Meir that he remains a Kohen Gadol, and therefore a ksheidom. Furthermore, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, again halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. Moide Rabbi Yossi she'im meis rishon, that if the first one later passes away, then he will automatically be the Kohen Gadol. You're not going to make another Kohen Gadol. Now the second one, the backup one, Shechayzel Avidasi. The Gemara finds this so obvious that why did we even have to write it? Pshita. No, it's not obvious. Because now the Taimam, Haviyalot Sora Mechayim, that maybe just like the Chazal, according to Rabbi Yossi, who are concerned about Eva, does not allow him to function as the Kohen Gadol when the first one is alive, maybe if this would be the din, which it is, then the first Kohen Gadol will always view him as a rival. Like he already knows, normally a Kohen Gadol knows, I have no mamala makim. Let them figure it out when I pass away. Here, there's someone that's already a Kohen Gadol. So one might have thought that they wouldn't even allow this, not to create bad feelings for the living one, for the first one to feel, oy gavalt, he's my competition. So that's the Kamash Malan, that there's no such a thing. The original Kohen Gadol won't have any Eva, knowing that the backup will continue to be a Kohen Gadol if he passes away. That's fine. But the Chayav, we're Chayish Mishum Eva, according to Rabbi Yossi, like we paskin, and this Yid, it's an interesting concept. So on one hand, he was Zoicha, on Yom Kippur, to go Lefnai v'Lefnim. And on the other hand, until the passing of the original Kohen Gadol, he de facto cannot be Meshamesh at all in the Beis HaMikdash, because Arba Begadim, he's a Kohen Gadol. Shmoyne Begadim, the concept of Eva to be continued.
Yeah.
Good, great. Guys, the next daf is short, so we have time. But oh boy, do you have to halk up. It's like gavaldik. Whoever is not sharp should drink a coffee. Heads up. It's 5 minutes early. If someone can just put on the daf chat that we're starting daf Yud Gimel now, for people not to lose over here at the beginning. It's one flow, and it's, wow, it's amazing. Abu Shloimela. All right, Chedra, let's go. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yoma Daf Yud Gimel. We will start in today's daf learning about the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda that we have on the Mishnah Daf Beis that says that we have to prepare a backup wife in case the current wife of the Kohen Gadol passes away. And this is based on the pasuk that what the Kohen Gadol does in his avodah on Yom Kippur is to achieve kapara for him and for his house. And the meaning of his house means for his wife. So you see that he has to have a wife, and what would happen if, God forbid, his wife will pass away? So there's a backup wife. Now, first, the Gemara is going to focus on what's the machlokes between the Tanakama, the Chachamim, that don't hold that you have to have a backup wife, but they do hold that you have to have a backup Kohen Gadol. So we already mentioned it, Bekitzer, and we're going to have a little bit more that, you know, there's levels of possibilities, more likely, less likely. You can say this percentages, higher percentage, you have to be chayish for, you have to take into account something that is less possible or something that you do not have to take into account. We're going to work that out. And there's a beautiful back and forth in the beginning, but the bulk of today's daf will have the following beautiful question. And there's going to be 10 steps to get to the answer. Question is like this. Based on the premise that beisoi, which is the word that we use, that he has to have a house, a wife, doesn't only mean that he has to be married. It means he has to be married to one wife. Beisoi b'loshen yachid. Based on that premise, now we have a problem. So he has a backup wife. Well, if he fully marries her, then he has two wives, two batim. Not two batim is not good. So exactly how do we achieve our goal? Another detail that the Gemara doesn't even speak out, the Rishonim, Tosfos speaks out, and other Rishonim, to have a wife that he will only marry during Yom Kippur is not acceptable. That's going to be the big Tosfos that we have on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Either there's a whole issue of making a kinyan on Shabbos that does not allow one to get married on Shabbos and on Yom Kippur, which is Shabbos Shabbosim. There is another technical issue of if the wife, God forbid, passes away sometime in middle of the Avodah. Can you imagine? He's in the Kodesh HaKodshim. What he's going to go out in the middle and get married? Doesn't work. It's technically not viable. So he's going to have to marry the second wife. It's not good. It's going to be amazing. So we're going to go into 4 possibilities. We're going to rule one out. We're going to have to deal with every step with possibility A, B, and C. Basically, what's going to need to happen is that he's going to have to marry the backup wife, but he's going to have to give to one or to both a conditional get, which will also go into this whole concept of conditional gittin. What condition is a valid condition? What condition is b'chlal not a valid condition? B'chlal, there's conditions that only go into effect from when the condition was met and forward, mikanu lahaba, but then you have conditions that if they are verbalized in the right way, almanas, then they go back retroactive. So it's going to be some sort of retroactive condition, which will somehow achieve the goal that no matter what happens, he will always be married only to one wife, but will be married to one wife. And we're going to go through 10 steps to get to the way this could and this needs to be achieved. And then if we'll have time on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, it's a small daf. We can learn it slowly to fully understand this whole trip that we're going to go on. But at the end of this whole sugya, we're going to start speaking about the unique halachis of aninus for a kohen gadol. Aninus meaning that there is the general concept of a person being in a state of mourning, but there are levels to mourning. The highest level, the acute mourning, is the day that one of the 7 relatives passed away. The 7 relatives is, God forbid, one's father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, spouse. Another machloikes tanoim that we're not even going to mention explicitly about today, but we always see it. How far into after the passing is someone in the status of an oinen? For sure, on the day of the passing, does the status of aninus go to the night? Was the burial during the day? Was the burial not during the day? Aninus by Laila is midoraisa or midarabanan. We're going to learn one shita. We're going to it's going to come up just to clarify. We're going to go according to the shita that aninus is only by yom midoraisa, and if the burial happened by yom, then there is no biblical obligation to mourn in the way of an oinen. But whenever a person, a kohen, is in a state of aninus, the kohen may not do the avodah. And what is unique to a kohen gadol is that he does the avodah even in a state of aninus. That will be the whole nekuda that we'll have all the way up until the Mishnah on Daf Yudalid Benegeya Aninus. But let's come back and start learning and really going through the details of exactly how the backup wife will work in a effective way. So we're starting on 1, 2, 3, 5th line from the top of the Amid. The Gemara by the 2 dots is referring back to the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda not only agrees, like everyone does, that there has to be a backup kohen gadol, but also af isha achas maskinan loy, isha acheres, a backup wife. Says the Gemara, hold on, the Rabbanan, why would the Rabbanan not agree with that? Now, we already mentioned it in the beginning, but really this question is just a build-up to ask a very strong question. The Rabbanan nami hachayish l'shema, v'haraya, the Rabbanan hold that you have a backup kohen gadol. Now, this kohen gadol is going to do everything he could, right, not to become tamei. But it could happen. Well, that means that we have to take into account possibilities. So why is this different than that? So it must be, amalach Rabbanan, tuma shechicha, misa loy shechicha. Guys, this is very important. I know it's obvious, and I know that we mentioned it. But as we will see, all as a build-up to the whole 10 steps in Rabbi Yehuda, that there are certain possibilities that we never have to be concerned about. Remember that. I'll repeat this, how that's negated to Rabbi Yehuda. Amrulai. Now, the Chachamim don't tell Rabbi Yehuda, Stam, that Misa lo shchicha. That no. What they told Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah is, if you are taking into account a lesser possibility of someone's spouse, God forbid, passing away, and parenthetically, then Rabbanan will be moida that if the kohen gadol's wife, God forbid, is very ill, she has a terminal illness, and doctors are saying that, listen, she can go any day. Of course, that Rabbanan will be moida to Rabbi Yehuda. We're not speaking about a scenario where there is taka de facto a reason to be concerned of a passing. We're speaking about normally that one's wife as well, she's going to pass away in the next 24 hours, that you're not chayish. So the Chachamim told Rabbi Yehuda, once you have to halachically be concerned about something that's highly unlikely, then why only one backup wife? Why not 2 backup wives? Why not 3 backup wives? Because maybe one will pass away, God forbid, and then the other one will also pass away. Oh, so weiter shaper ka amrelei Rabbi Yehuda is haguta kashe. So Rabbi Yehuda will answer, yes, I am chayish to something that's loy shchicha vis-a-vis tuma. But don't misunderstand me that I therefore am chayish to any most minute possibility. Even Rabbi Yehuda will say that there are degrees to possibilities. He says, Lemisa chada chayshinam. Rabbi Yehuda acknowledges that misa is less of a possibility than tuma. Okay, so he's even more concerned. He takes into account even that which is less possible, but it's not a broad stroke, any less possible. No, mida chada is chayish, relative to misa chada, that both wives will pass away. Lemisa datarta loy chayshina. And now the Gemara wants to, before we go on to Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbanan will hold, no, if you take into account that one will die, then you have to take into account 2 that will die. That's why they challenged Rabbi Yehuda. And now the Gemara has a bomba kasha against the Rabbanan. And what did the Rabbanan saying? If you are already taking into account something, then you have to take into account all the way. What did the Rabbanan say? How many backup Kahanim Gedolim do you make? One? Why don't the Rabbanan challenge themselves? Why one? Why not have 2 backup Kahanim Gedolim? Why not have 10 backup Kahanim Gedolim? Tuma is something that you're more concerned about. The Chachamim's challenge to Rabbi Yehuda was, if you have to have 1 backup wife, then Ein Lo Davar Soif. So that refutes their own shita. They themselves don't subscribe to Ein Lo Davar Soif. V'harayah, the Rabbanan only have 1 backup Kohen Gadol, not more. They also don't hold to Ein Lo Davar Soif. Gavaldik. So Amalach Rabbanan, listen to this. Koydem Kol, the Tuma is up to the Kohen. Don't forget, he's quarantined. No one is coming into him. He might have a keri. It's something you have a lot more ability to prevent yourself becoming tamei than a person has the ability preventing his wife from passing away. So based on the rule that a Kohen Gadol is zaris, he will make all of the efforts and steps necessary not to become tamei. Not going to happen. But again, if it's not going to happen, he's zarasu, then why do we even need 1 backup Kohen Gadol? Lama maskinu le Kohen achar. Now listen to this. Says the Gemara, you know how you make the Kohen Gadol even more conscientious and even more precautious not to become tamei? You know how you do that? By telling the Kohen Gadol, listen, my friend, if you become tamei, we have a backup. What did we learn at the end of the last daf? It's already an ava. No one wants to have a tzara. No one wants to have a backup. The very fact that we appoint a backup Kohen Gadol makes him even more zaris, never to need the other Kohen Gadol. That's the psychology. Even though they didn't like tzara, they make a rival. Is kol shchenim zaris tvei. But you know what? If Take, you would be concerned that he would become tamei, for which you needed to have a backup. Ein Lo Davar Soif. The Chachamim hold of this concept, Ein Lo Davar Soif. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of Ein Lo Davar Soif. Rabbi Yehuda holds that we have to be concerned on one hand, even for things that are less plausible, which is the passing of one's wife. But only 1 wife, 2 wives, is it possible? Everything is possible. At kedei kach not. Now, based on this premise, the 10 steps are not 1,000 steps. So one thing let's make clear, that now with Rabbi Yehuda, there is a backup wife. Now, when a man marries 2 wives, as we'll work out, there are 3 possibilities and not 4. I want to say that very clear. Guys, remember this, the klal, and everything will go easy. Aleph, I'm going to call this Aleph, A. A will be a man is married to 2 wives and none of them died, right? That's probably the most likely thing. B will be that the first wife will die, second one will live. C, that the second one will die and the first one will live. D, we don't halachically take into account. There's never a fear halachically that both will die. Remember that. Then everything becomes easy. So now the question is, and the answer will have to be, you have to have a wife. Wife means yes 1, not 0, but yes 1 and not 2. And again, based on the premise that he cannot marry her during Yom Kippur, either because it's prohibited, because you can't make a kinyan on Yom Kippur, or because technically you can't have a Kohen Gadol in the middle of the avodah. If, God forbid, his wife passes away, what will he do? He'll stop everything? He'll go out of the Kodesh Kachim, tell God 1 second, and go get married? Doesn't work. So how does the backup wife even help? Says the Gemara, me, you're chayish that the wife will pass away. Okay, it's a chayish, but what's the solution? To get another wife. We're going to go through every step. No, the Havamina is just a backup wife. It's a backup wife, just like we had in the Reisha, a backup Kohen Gadol. We learned in the last daf, the backup Kohen Gadol was not done with the Shmoyne Begadim before Yom Kippur, especially since we paskin like Rabbi Yossi, because that will make it very bad for him, that he'll never be able to do the avodah b'chayev of the Rishon. A backup Kohen Gadol is, he's not made a Kohen Gadol, he's the one that if the Kohen Gadol becomes Tamei, on Yom Kippur will make him into a Kohen Gadol. So the premise is the same thing as with the wife, you're not married yet. So what? There's the backup. The first one dies, he's not married. The Gemara says it must be that he gives her Kedushin before Yom Kippur. He marries her. So the Gemara says, no. Kedushin is not enough. That's another premise that will be challenged on Amud Beis. Well, the premise is, bias means married, nesuyin, not enough Kedushin. The ha kama deloikana is, how do we know that he has to be married? Because it says v'chiper ba'ad beisoi. He brings atonement also for his bias, and the bias, our homes is our wives. Well, kedushin is not enough of a connection to have her called bias holav beisoi. So therefore, again, the answer has to be that the Rabbi Yehuda, he taka marries her, not only kedushin but nesuyin. But the Baita reflecting Gemara, im kein havel shnei batim. And v'rachmana amar v'chiper ba'adoi u'ba'ad beisoi b'loshen yachid v'loi ba'ad shnei batim. Now, guys, I want you to know that we have two premises here that both of them will be challenged. Number one is that bias is only nesuyin, not kedushin. Number two, that beisoi doesn't mean two. We're gonna have problems with that, as we'll see in Amud Beis. But let's leave it all aside. Based on this premise, you have to be married to one, not to zero, not to two. So again, how does the backup help? It must be the Hadin Megadishla. He marries the backup wife. I'm going to call, guys, the backup wife as the second wife, okay, just to get clear. So he has the first wife. Now he marries the second wife, but he divorces the second wife. Now, everyone knows the kash on that. But the Gemara is teaching us how to think. Like, let's go through the Seder. We're going to go through a series of deductions. If the Gemara would have wanted, it would have told us right away the answer at the end. But then we would not know how to think. So it must be he divorces her. Second to last, the last narrow line. Well, if he divorces the second wife, then he's only married to one wife. Is Hadra Kasha Laduchta. So answers the Gemara, he's married already to A. He marries wife B, right? Rachel Leah. He was married to Rachel. He now marries Leah. And he has to give her a get, but it's a conditional get. And let's see how that will work. So the Megadishla al Tanai, the Omar Lois tells the second wife, this is your get, al musi, on the condition that you die, that you second wife die. Which means that if the second wife dies, it means that retroactively she was never married to him. So let me go through again the ABC. You'll understand, like Rashi says, of course this won't work. I know, of course, it won't work. But let's compartmentalize. D is never a worry. We're not chayesh halachically that both wives will die. When a man enters Yom Kippur, married to two wives, the Kohen Gadol Rabbi Yehuda marries two wives. Before we get into the nuance of what the Tanai of the get is, there are three possibilities only. A, none of them will die. B, the first one will die. C, the second one will die. We are now addressing the issue of he's getting married to two. He can't have two wives. At least if C happens, then it's not only that from when she died is he no longer married to two wives. If C will happen, he gave her the get before Yom Kippur. If he gave her the get on the condition that it will go into effect if you die, so if she dies on Yom Kippur, it chaps that retroactively, who was he married to on Yom Kippur? Only to wife number one. So he's only married to one wife. So this Tanai would be good for the option C. Problem is, okay, what about, yes?
Can you do Kiddushin or Nisuin al Tanai, or is it only the get that you could do al Tanai?
Very good. Should make it. We're going to learn this in Masechtas Kiddushin, God willing, that even though it's not practiced today, you can do Kiddushin al Tanai and you can do Gerushin al Tanai. Yes. We don't do it nowadays. But let's learn about the Ikar Adin. He's giving her Kiddushin. Kiddushin is not even enough. Kiddushin and Nisuin. And now he gives a get. And this first line addresses C. Once you have this in your mind, it's going to be easy because people say, gives her a get on the condition that she dies. How does it resolve it? Because every scenario, we're going to look at A, B, C. A is no one dies. B, the first one dies. C, the second one dies. You can't be married to two wives.
And
give her a get.
We're talking about on Yom Kippur?
No, before Yom Kippur. He marries them, Kiddushin and Nesuyin before Yom Kippur, and he gives a get before Yom Kippur.
But we're chayish that they may die on Yom Kippur.
So don't say they again, because that's
one.
One will die, yeah.
One or the other.
Or none of them will die. Danny, again, A, when I'm going to say A, guys, that's the code. A means none of them will die. That's the highest likely. No one will die. A, no one will die. B, the first one will die. C, the second one will die. Well, I don't like saying the word die, passing away. Okay. So this first white line addresses C, that if Taka, the second one, passes away, since he gave her a get, that goes into effect from before Yom Kippur. Almanash will pass away. If she passes away retroactively, the get went into effect before Yom Kippur. So on Yom Kippur, he was only married to one wife, to the first wife. But you know what it doesn't address? It does not address, what about A? Right? What about if no one passes away? If the get only goes into effect if she doesn't pass away, then he's right to marry to two wives. The dilma loy maisa. What happens if neither of them pass away? Now, by the way, another detail. I just want to go back that if he gives her a get almanasha to musi, what happens if B or good? If B passes away, but C doesn't, because if B passes away, C will not, because we're not chayish to two deaths. The first line addresses B and C. Because if the first one passes away, then halachically the second one won't pass away. If the second one won't pass away, then she won't be divorced. So he's married to second wife. If the second one passes away, then he's only married to the first wife. But what does the first solution not address? Option A. Option A is neither of them will die. So there's no get. So he was married to Shtubatim.
If B passes away, so why does he need to get in the first place? Or it doesn't have any more like two wives? Why does he need to get like if B will
because
pass
we
away?
don't know. We don't know whether the first one will pass away or not. We don't know that. And being that we're not chayish for both of them to pass away, so if the only chayshinin was one or the other, if one will pass away, we just don't know which one, then this will be a good solution. Give the second one a get before Yom Kippur. Almanas, it goes into effect if you pass away. If the second passes away, halachically, it means the first one didn't. He's married to the first. If the first one passes away, then halachically, we're saying we're not concerned that the second one will pass away. So he's married to the second. Get used to that thinking. The problem is that this solution doesn't address option A that we do take into account. What's option A? Yes.
Rabbi, even meaning you're only doing the conditional get with the second wife, right?
Yes. So far. Yes.
Okay, but so even if you'd say, well, if the first one passes away, well, when did she pass away? If she passes away in the middle of Yom Kippur,
we're going to get that later. Danny, the Gemara is going to address this later in the Amit. That's another important wrinkle here that we have to take into account.
Okay, I think that's what Shlomo was asking about them passing away. Well,
okay, very good. In other words, what Rashi says here in the beginning, that every option until we come to the end has many questions on it. So people are worried, but there's this, all those questions. The Gemara is just teaching us how to think. And I'm telling you, the way it works is A, B, C. And we're constantly going, and there is a D, but halachically, we're not concerned that both will pass away. So whenever there is a passing, it means the other one didn't. Once you get that, it's such an organized way of thinking. So the first answer addresses B and C. Problem is the second white line. It doesn't address.
Rabbi, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, the basis is like that you cannot have two wives, but you need to have two wives.
You cannot have no wives and you cannot have two wives. You have to have one wife. That's the problem. That's the challenge. Now, the Chachamim have no challenge. The Chachamim say we're not chayish that no one will pass away. He only has one wife. Rabbi Yehuda is chayish that one will pass away. Not two, but one. So what do you do? So
why don't we keep it simple, Rabbi Zions?
Yes.
And just say, just do the Almanas with Nisuyin. And just say Almanas, one passes away. You're Nisuyin Lamafreya from
That's what Danny was trying to ask before, but since I don't know the answer, I managed to say I don't know the answer. I have to say I don't know. I'm sure that Rishonim speak about it. Okay, it's okay, it's good. Okay. Hello. The Omarlom, Hareze Gitech, Almanas Shaloi Tomusi, Punkt verkehrt. Well, guys, this is so good. This is your get. You know what activates the get? Her not passing. How did we resolve that? We resolved A now. How do we resolve A? If neither passes away, he gives her a get, almanas, you don't pass away. We just focused on A. That resolves A, because if she does not pass away, then she is divorced, right? Then she is divorced. So if she's divorced, then he's only married to wife number one. Says the Gemara, hold on. And further, and the second one passes away. If the second one passes away, well, he's married to the first. So really, A and C are covered. A and C are covered, right? But no, it's guys. C is the second one passing. So if the second one passes, okay, we're not chayish that both wives will pass. You're good. He's married to wife number one. I don't know if these charts help. Take the charts away. I think I'm going to explain it better. If the question was if they both pass away, if they both live perfect, if they both live, the second gets Tanai was activated. The second's non-passing gets her divorced. What is not resolved? B. Okay, good. What about V Dilma? He loy mesa. B means the second one doesn't pass away. The first one passes away. She doesn't pass away. Her not passing, what does her not passing do? Her non-passing activates the get. So she's divorced. Right? The Havale Gita, the High Gita. But what happens? Option B. What's my option B? Option B is that the first wife passes away. The first wife passes away. V was chapt. He's not married to any wife. The second one was divorced because she didn't pass away, and the first one passed away. And what happens if option B is an option? Rabbi Yehuda's chayish for one death. It's very organized. Oh, Elo, the Amala, he gives a get to wife number two. Narvas then, he tells her, Almana shetomus achas miken, that if one of you will pass away, so mesaha kaimahach. Mesahach ha kaimaha. So this covers weiter B and C. But we're back to A. But v'dima loy maisa v'loy chodem inayu. If the get will only be activated if one will pass away, if neither pass away, which were for sure chayish, then none of them are divorced. And weiter v'havalosh neibat. Void. Now the whole concept of giving a woman a get, that it goes into effect when she dies. If you die, this concept is b'chlal not a valid condition. On the condition that you will never drink wine as long as I am alive, and the kasha will be from the chayai actually will be removed in the Gemara and Gita and Daf Pegimo. That's focused solely on the next statement, v'chaychi. You are divorced on the condition that you may never drink wine as long as you are alive. That means that for the rest of her life, because of her first husband, she's limited in something. That's b'chlal not a get. Why not? Because the Torah calls a get krisus, a document of severance. Now, the concept of a Tanai means that until the Tanai is met, Taka, she's not divorced. But there has to at least be the possibility that during her life, when the condition at least possibly could be met, she'll be completely severed. There won't be any limitation that's coming from the first husband. So any type of get that the Tanai means that if while she's living, she's still married or married for one detail, it's b'chlal not a get. So the options that we were saying that a get should go into effect if you will die is b'chlal not a valid condition. Because then the get only goes into effect. It means that during her life, there's no get yet. Only if it's kol yemei chaye ploini, if a man tells a woman, I'm giving you a get almanas, it's going to go into effect when someone else passes away. Since at least it's possible that that other person will pass away in her lifetime, then it is krisus. And by the way, again, that's why if he tells his wife that you can't drink wine as long as I am alive, that taka is valid. The Gemara in Gittin says, so chaye is good. But the kasha is that all of these conditions of her dying is not a tanai. So let's go back to Elo, 3 lines from the bottom. On the condition that your friend, I'm going to say the first wife doesn't pass away. So let's speak it out. Again, A, B, C. If the first wife doesn't pass away, the non-passing of the first activates the get, then migarsha the second. So then the Kohen Gadol is only married to the first. If the first wife passes away, guys, the get is activated if she doesn't pass away. If she does pass away, right? So then the get is reestablished. I'm sorry, then the get is if she doesn't pass away. If she does pass away, then there's no get. The passing undoes the get. So who is he married to? He's married to the second. What's the problem, my friends? So what did we cover? We covered B and C again. We covered B and C. That whichever one passes away, he'll be married to one wife. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we covered A. No, we covered the first time, we covered A, B, C. Oh, Gavaldik. Then what's A? That no one will pass away. It's Gavaldik. What activates the get of the second? If the first one doesn't pass away. Option A is the first one doesn't pass away. Option A is that none of them pass away. But if the first one does not pass away, then the get of the second retroactively is a get. So if A happens, he's only married to the first. It's Gavaldik. What's B? B is that the first wife passed away. Oof, the first one passes away, then the get of the second is not a get. He's married to the second. If the option C is the second one passes away, so good, he's married to the first. He's married to the first. Who cares? So this is the first time. It's not a condition if you'll pass, is if someone else will not pass. A, B, C is covered. Now we're going to add this new wrinkle, even in such a case. But when Yom Kippur began, wife number one will pass away. The moment wife number one passes away, what does it do? This empowers the get. When wife number one passes away, then the second one's get is no longer a get, because the get has to be only if the first one doesn't pass away. So if the first one will pass away, then he is married to the second. And by the way, after the first one passes away, he's only married to the second because the first one passed away. Here is where the Gemara speaks out, but before she passes away, he's married to two wives. How great is this Gemara? That the get of the high, that the second get is not a get. So until the first passing, he has two wives. And Ella, how do you resolve this? We have a Shulchan Aruch over here. This is Moededik. Ella, it must be that there has to be another condition. The Amar law, again, all this is with the second wife. He tells the backup wife, again, he marries her, Kedushin, and Nesuyin, and he gives her a get all before Yom Kippur, and this is the condition. Number one is, that if the second wife dies, what is that? We're calling that option C, right? If the second wife dies, then what? Then
is the first one dies.
That's a problem, because if the first one dies, then the second one is divorced. That's a kasha right away. So then again, then he's going to be working without any wife. In other words, if it's that almanas sheloi tamus chaverteich, then we got stuck with him doing an avodah with two wives. So it cannot be a condition that she will not die. The condition has to be almanas that the first wife does die. But now we have a problem. Let's speak Pashut. If that happens, Taka, if the first wife dies, then he's married to no wives. Oh, the Dilma Maisa Chaverto. So how does that happen? The first wife is going to die. The Havel Gita. So now the second get was activated, and become labeled bias. So we're leading up to something. Ella the Megara Shlolo Tarvai. Finally, it must be that he gives both of them a get. And now let's start using just names. First, second, Rachel and Leah. So the Megara Shlolo Tarvai. Lechada, to the first wife, to Rachel, he says, Areza Giteich Almanas Shaloi Tamus Chaverteich. This will be a get if Leah does not die. The non-death of one, the life of one, right, brings upon the get of the other. And to the other wife, to the second wife, to Leah, he says, this has to happen on the condition that you don't enter the shul. You can't say to each one that your get will be a get if the other one doesn't die, because option A will be the problem here, because then both of them will not die, option A, and then he's married to no one, right? If the get is activated through the non-death. So to the second wife, the condition has to be almanas, that you do not enter the Beis HaKnesses. Now guys, the Gemara doesn't speak it out, so let's speak it out. What's option number one? Option Aleph is neither dies. So let's halk up. If neither dies, then Rachel is divorced. Why is Rachel divorced? Because he gave to Rachel, he gave Rachel a get that will be activated if the other does not die. So in option A, that Leah did not die, neither did Rachel. So what? Rachel is divorced. Leah's not dying, but activated the get. So who is he married to? He's married to, this is an option A, he's married now to Leah. Now, he gave Leah a get, but Leah's get only goes into effect if she doesn't enter the Beis HaKnesses, which means that if she enters the Beis HaKnesses, she she will void her get. So if Rachel, in this case, what does Leah need to do? Leah needs to enter the shul. So Leah voided her get, and he's no longer married to Rachel. Guys, we're good? So A is covered over here. But don't forget, A is only covered if Leah steps into the shul. We have to rely on her doing that. Because if Leah will not step into the shul, then she also will be divorced. Let's go to B, what we call B. B is that the first wife will die, that Rachel will die. Rachel is the first wife. And another thing, guys, halk up. If Rachel dies, it means Leah did not. We're never chayish to both deaths. Okay, so if Rachel dies, then Rachel is divorced all along. Why is Rachel divorced all along? Because he tells Rachel that I'm giving you a get, almanas, that your friend doesn't die. This is so gavaldik. Almanas, that your friend, if Rachel dies, halachically Leah lives, because we are never chayish to two deaths. So option B, by default, means that Leah doesn't die. Leah's non-death activates the get. So Rachel is divorced. Now, again, Leah will have to walk into a shul to void her get, because if she doesn't walk into a shul, then you got a problem. Then she's also divorced. Let's go now to option C. Let's speak it out. What's option number C? That Leah passes away. Second wife passes away. What happens when Leah passes away? It means that Rachel lives. So you should know that Leah's passing cancels Rachel's get, because Rachel, the first one, was given a wife, almanas, that your friend will not pass away. So if Leah does pass away, then Rachel's get is canceled.
Question, Rabbi.
Yes.
If the first one passes away, why does she need a get? She's already dead.
Because that was the kasha that we had on the bottom of the Amid, that since they might pass away only in middle of the avodah, very good, Kevan. So even though from now on she passed away, but until that passing, he was married to two wives. Here the beauty is that Rachel dying means Leah doesn't. That's what the Gemara doesn't even speak out, because they're not chayish to two deaths. Leah's non-death activates Rachel's get. Rachel's get was given before Yom Kippur. That's the beauty. Says the Gemara, let's go now inside. The Dilma, it's both option A and B only work, but we're vulnerable. If Leah will enter the shul, we don't like that option. We don't like that option, because if Leah won't enter the shul, then he has no wives. So, in fact, and he means Leah, she will not enter the Beis HaKnesses. We both getting go into effect. Leah's life, right? Leah's wife makes the get a get. Rachel is not married. Leah didn't go into a shul, so her get is also a get. So the Gemara says, Ella, like this. Lachada, and to Rachel, to the first wife, he has to give a get to both. So far, so good. Same thing. Your get is activated by the non-death of Leah. Leah not dying means Rachel was divorced all along. And to Leah, he tells her, this is your get. not based on something that Leah will do, something that's the Kohen Gadol. Almanas she'ekones ani lebeis haknesses. And here it's, if he enters the shul, then he activates the get. Now let's go through all the three options. First of all, options B and C, before both of them living, either one or the other, let's speak it out. If Rachel dies, let's halt up. If Rachel dies in middle of the Avodah, the moment you say Rachel dying, since we're not chayish to do that, it means Leah lived. Leah's not dying activates the get of Rachel, which is good, right, Kevin? That means that even before he was not married to Rachel. Now, he's married to Leah, but he gave her a get. But the get was only activated if the Kohen Gadol goes into the Beis HaKnesses in the shul. He just does nothing. So the Kohen Gadol does not step into the shul. So Leah's get is canceled, so he's married to Leah. Option B. Now, let's go to option C. We're going to leave 8 for a moment. The option C is that Leah passes away. Leah's death cancels Rachel's. Leah's death cancels Rachel's get. Beautiful. Cancel means he's married to Rachel. So he was only married to Rachel. He's not married to Leah. Now we can have the same kasha. The kasha will be that even though he's married to Rachel, even though now Leah died, we'll get to that in a moment. But until Leah passed away, he's married to 2 wives. So
He can just go into a shul.
So that's what the Gemara is going to answer before we speak it out. Now, what's option number 1? Let's go to option A. The Gemara doesn't have to speak it out, which is the biggest possibility. If none of them will pass away, so what does the Kohen Gadol do? The Kohen Gadol goes into shul. None of them passes away. He goes into shul. When he goes into shul, he activates the get that he gave to Leah before Yom Kippur. He's only married to 1 wife.
When does he go into shul?
No. If he goes into shul, then he gets divorced from the second wife. But
I said good then.
The first one will also get divorced because the second one lived.
No, what activates the get is the non-death. If the second one lives, then Rachel's get is not activated. It's voided.
Then he'll have no wife. So he doesn't go into shul then.
No, Nachum Dani. If both of them live, then the Kohen Gadol at any time in Yom Kippur will have to go into shul. Both of them live, so then Rachel's get is canceled. He's married to Rachel. He's married to Leah. Go into shul and void and activate the get of Leah. In option A, all he needs to do is to go into shul.
When? At the end of the day? When does he activate?
Anytime.
Well, it would have to be the end of the day, because that way he makes sure that Rachel lived till the end of the day.
That's right.
So it has to be right at the end of Yom Kippur. He goes into shul.
No. Rabbi Chaim, that's where everyone gets tripped up. When one passes, the other one doesn't. That's the beauty of this whole sugya. There's no D. One passing, there can't be 2 deaths. We're not chayish to 2 deaths.
If he voids, though, Leah's get, if he makes Leah's get work by entering a shul at 1 o'clock in the middle of the day,
You're right. Correct. Danny's not happy. Why is Danny not happy?
1 second. The condition with wife number 1 is that you're divorced if the second wife does not die. In this case, we're talking about where she did not die. So he shouldn't enter if he enters the shul, then he has no wife, Rabbi, because the first one is divorced because the second one didn't die, and the second one's divorced because he walked into a shul.
Danny, the Gemara is going to speak about it in a moment. Okay, we work through B and C.
In A, he just doesn't go into shul. The first wife gets divorced, and he's married to the second wife.
Correct. Okay, good. Okay, stand corrected. Very good. So now says the Gemara, hold on. What's the issue? That Dilma Maisa Chaverta Bapalga Davoida. Oh no, Rabbi Chaim, the Gemara says what you just said. That maybe Leah will pass away in middle. Right? What happens when Leah passes away in the middle? When Leah passes away in the middle, it means that Rachel is not divorced. It voided Rachel. If he didn't yet enter the Beis HaKnesses, then he's married to 2 wives until the passing. After the passing, he's only married to 1 wife. It's very good. If no one passes away,
why wouldn't he then just be able to go into the basic ness and retroactively the second?
So it's clear from the Gemara base, that's what the Rishonim speak about, that ein get la'achar misa, that he'll have to enter the basic nesses before her passing. Once she passed away, we don't say that now we can go into the basic nesses and retroactively activate the get because she passed away. So Rabbi Avremel, it's very good over here. Well, Danny, thank for the correction. Well, now option A, he doesn't do anything. Not doing anything is great. The highest likelihood is that no one will pass away. No one passes away, he does nothing. Does nothing means that he's married to Leah. And Rachel automatically will be divorced because Leah didn't pass away. The only theory is that Leah will pass away. And until that, he's married to two wives. So what do we do? So let's read it inside. That Leah will pass away in the middle of the Avodah, and until then, but beautiful. Says the Gemara, you know what we do? The moment Leah is about to pass away, then then he has to go into the Beis HaKnesses. It's much more clear from the Gemara here that he has to do it before she passes away. The moment he enters the Beis HaKnesses, it voids the get of, it activates the get of Leah. He won't be divorced from Rachel because the get of Rachel is only a get if Leah does not pass away. Here she passed away. So the passing of Leah voided the get to Rachel is gavaldik. And now again, when he enters the Beis HaKnesses, the Havla Gita Lamafreya. Okay, that's it. That is the way it's done.
Rabbi, quick.
Oh.
Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah.
If he gives her a get and she's holding the get, and it's conditional that the other one lives, and
Yes.
the other one currently is alive. She's now a free woman. How does she retroactive? How, if she now dies, how does he take away the get?
No. Aaron. He marries both wives. He married Rachel, married Leah. When you give a get on condition, until the condition is met, the get is not activated. But if and when the condition is met, then it's activated retroactively, just to get the structure clear. In other words, until the that's what Rabbi Chaim was saying before, until the end of Yom Kippur, we don't know what their status is.
Okay.
They're not free women because they were given a get on condition.
Okay. So the time is the end. Got it.
The time is the end. Very good.
Rabbi, I want to just point out that I guess we're doing this all just for the logic, but practically, if he was married to one woman, and then we're adding the second one just as like a backup.
Yep.
So shouldn't the conditions be the opposite? Meaning, because in the end, where does he want to be? He wants to be married to his original wife, not married to this second wife.
Danny, you're speaking like a happily married man. I'm happy asking that question. Yashir Koyach. Okay, and by the way, I could have worded the whole thing the opposite. Doesn't matter. I was the one that was saying it that way.
The condition of going into the shul, right? That should really be according for his first wife, and the other one.
Danny, you're probably right. Correct. Guys, the beauty here is, and especially on Amid Beis, it took me a while to chop that, is that the moment one dies in that possibility, it means the other one didn't. That's why we began. That even Rabbi Yehuda, that's chayish, he doesn't say ein lo davar soif. It's beautiful. You know, this only worked because there's only A, B, and C to be worried about. There is no D. Okay, now guys, we're good. The puzzle was solved, and Danny, thank you for that correction. Good. Now there are two premises that brought about the whole challenge. Like, how do you know that he cannot be married to two wives? Who said that? Based on the premise, it says v'chiper ba'ad beisoy. Beisoy means one and not two. Asks the Gemara, is that true? No. Let's go to the dinim of Yibum, Parshas Kiseitze. Now, if Reuven is married, this is before Chedim Derabeinu Gershon. This is to be clear. Today, we do not marry two wives at the same time. God forbid. But before that, if a man is married to two, Reuven is married to two wives, and Reuven passes away, and he has no children, not from this wife, not from the other wife, not from a prior wife, v'zera ein law, ayin law, no kids, no descendants, no grandkids. So the din is that if Reuven leaves a brother or brothers, so the whole din of Yibum. No one says that if Reuven, who passed away, had two wives, there's no more din Yibum. But let's say that, because the whole din of Yibum has the pasuk about building base achiv. The whole parsha of Yibum uses bias b'lashon yachid. No one says by Yibum that if the man has 2 wives and then he passes away, there's no din Yibum. Yes, there is din Yibum with all the details. We'll learn in Masechta Yavamis. Not that, God forbid, you don't do Yibum with both wives, but you have to do Yibum with 1 wife. Right? You build 1 bias. So, the last narrow line, that if bias teaches us only 1 house and not 2, then, well, why don't we say, and no one says it, that that if Reuven is married to 2 wives and he passes away, then there's Bechlal no din of Yibum. Then the original erva of Eish Zachav goes into effect. No one says that. So answers the Gemara, the premise is correct. Bias means 1 wife. But since in the Parsha Kiseitze, the Torah repeats the word Yevimtoi twice, the reason why God does it is to be marba. Even if a man is married to more than 1 wife, then still the Parsha of Yibum is activated. Gewaldig. Number 2, another premise. The premise was, how did we begin? Right, that Kedushin is not enough. Why isn't Kedushin enough? Because it says Beisoi. Beisoi means married. Yeah? But he has to be fully married for his wife to be considered his house. Arusa, like to Yabim, same kasha. If Reuven only did Kedushin with his halachic engaged wife, Mikudeshes, the din is that if Reuven passes away, Shimon has to do Yibam or Chalitza. The dinim of Yibam are activated. Why? Why again? The whole parsha there says, what does she say if she does Chalitza? He says, Kocha ya'asal ish asher lo yivna es beis achiv. Right? Shouldn't that preclude Arusa? Answers the Gemara, you're right. Bias means Nesuyin. Yibum is different because there the Pasuk writes, these are the words, Loisihiya Eshes Hameis Chutza Leishzar. Now the pshat is that the Eshes Hameis without the Yibum or Chalitza is not free to marry Ishzar. But the diuk, the drush here is that if the Eshes Hameis is only Chutza, she's not fully married, she's only Mikudeshes. Even there, Loisiya, she should not go le'izar. Guys, we concluded the sugya. We have time, so let us go now into the dinim of Aninus, which is a very simple dinim. Says whoever is Baruch Hashem. Okay, says the Gemara, Tanach Rabbanan. Changing topics. Kohen Gadol, even as an oinan, does the avodah. Says the Brayser, Kohen Gadol. Makriv, even as an oinan. But even though we are lenient by the Kohen Gadol, but he may not eat kachim. And that's really right the underlying parsha over there by the chatos of Rosh Chodesh, the seir chatos that are not Kohen burnt, because they eating you can't. Rabbi Yehuda says words that we don't understand. The whole day, what's meant? What does Rabbi Yehuda say?
Rabbi, just to clarify again, what is the hoinan?
So Shlomo, we spoke this out in the intro. When someone's 7 close relatives passes away, so generally the person is in mourning, but there are different phases of mourning. The first phase, which is called acute mourning, B'lashon HaKodesh, B'lashon of Toides, Aninus, he's an oinan. Now, during the time of Aninus, a Kohen Gadol may not do the avodah. When is the time of the Aninus? We also spoke this about in the intro. There's a big machloekes. How far does the time of Aninus go until? It's not the whole Shiva. We are going to be following those who hold that Aninus biblically is only on the day of the passing, which is what happened when Nadav and Avihu tragically, right, were taken by Hashem. Everyone was an oinan. And the avodah was done. A Kohen Gadol does the avodah by Aninus, but he can't eat. Rabbi Yehuda says kol hayom. So what does kol hayom mean? So we're going to have two approaches. My kol hayom, Omar Rava, I'll tell you. You know what kol hayom means? The Tanakh didn't say that the Kohen Gadol should do the avodah. The Tanakh said that he may do the avodah. Rabbi Yehuda is even more lenient. Rabbi Yehuda is saying not only is it permissible, but we advocate for him to do the avodah. We bring him from his house. Look inside the Rashi. Mitzvah hu sheyiviyu lemigdash la'avid kol hayom. Dafke kedei lefakeach tzaroy. Here we want the Kohen Gadol not to be focused on his pain. Make him do the avodah, which would mean that Rabbi Yehuda is very lenient. Not only may he, but he should. Gemara Abaya says it can be. Only Abaye to Rava, 1 second. It's so inconsistent. Hashta, according we know, to the same Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, regarding a Kohen Hedyot. A Kohen Hedyot that, God forbid, if he becomes a Oinan, we know Kohen Hedyot cannot do the Avodah. But what happens if he's already in middle of an Avodah? Do we interrupt that Avodah? Machlokes Tanoim. You know who's the Machmir? Rabbi Yehuda. It's going to have very not mistaber that Rabbi Yehuda by the Kohen Hedyot is the most Machmir. He should be the most lenient by the Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Kohen Hedyot not only may he never start, but we're so Machmir, even Afukim Afkinalei, we dismiss him in middle. As we learned in the Braisa, guys, 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, that and during the Avodah V'Shama Shemeis Lemeis. So the Rabbi Yehuda holds Maniach Avadosi V'Yotzei the Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that is more lenient. So if Rabbi Yehuda is that much machmer by the Kohen Hedyot, so it doesn't make sense that the meaning of the Braisa would be that Rabbi Yehuda is even more lenient by the Kohen Gadol. That my sinal and mitech we dafka bring him. Ella, therefore, it's not that Abaye gave a no answer, but Rava accepted that question of Abaye, and Rava another attempt, which will stand how to interpret the Braisa. Ella Amar Rava, then when the Rebbe Yehuda and the Braisa said the words Kol Hayoim Daf Yudalid Loimer. Oh no, he may not work. She'enoi oivet Kol Hayoim. Wow. Look inside Rashi. Loimer she'enoi oivet Kol Hayoim. Ad halayla, because balayla, if the Kohen Gadol who's taka and oinen miderabanan according to our sheet and bala haktir chalav emurim then yaktir. Now why not? Why not? Hold on, guys. The Torah says that a Kohen Gadol could do the avodah as an oinen. So Rabbi Yehuda is coming with the rabbinic, and why would the Chachamim say that he should not do it? Because gezeira shema yoichal. Because as we learned in Tanach, everyone holds that a Kohen Gadol cannot eat kachim biblically. So Rabbi Yehuda says, since you can't eat, you know what? If you're going to do the avodah, you might end up eating. Now, again, not to get into a golden pratim, our sugya is following the understanding that Rabbi Yehuda holds that there is no biblical aninos at night. There is rabbinic aninos at night. But you don't make exeda l'gzeda. If the isur of the Kohen Gadol, if the isur of aninus by light is only midrabanan, you're not going to build another gezeira on top of that. But since the isur of eating psar kachim b'yoim on the Kohen Gadol is biblical because he's an oinen b'yoim, even though Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Tanach in principle that the Kohen Gadol was given by God a dispensation and he may do the avodah, Rabbi Yehuda is being more machmer. Don't do it. Why? Gezeira shema yoichel. Hold on. Now you'll understand why did we bring this in over here. It's mamish connected to the whole sugya. Did we not learn in our Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says Af isha cheres maskinoloi, that you have to have a backup wife? Shemo Thomas Ishtoi, maybe his original wife will pass away. Now we got a problem. Now, okay, so what will happen? That if his wife passes away, and here it's good, but then he said, the first wife passes away. He was married to her. So then you use the backup wife. Of an avodah. My friend, is he not an oinon? He's an oinon. Eloma, you can do the avodah. Why? Because an oinon can do the avodah. But if Rabbi Yehuda holds, that there's a derabanon, shema yoichal. Fully goes to Rabbi Yehuda, shema yoichal. Gavaldik. So Amalei.
Hello.
Amalei hachi hashtem hasam kivin the Yom Kippurim hu the kula ami loika achlei. No one is eating on Yom Kippur. So hunami liyasel mechal. But in the case that we are discussing, since kula almi achlei, so hunami asel mechal. You know what we're bringing it, Danny? This is obvious. The next lines are huge. But now that we had this whole back and forth, what did we establish? That the only way the backup Kohen Gadol works, it must be, is by making two gittin on conditions in a way that if the one who passed away, what was the kasha we had at the bottom of Yud Gimel Amud, that the one who passed away, taka, after she passes away, he's only married to one wife. But until she passes away, he's married to two wives. And the only solution is that when the one who passed away, something will be enacted that lemafreya, she was never married. If she was never married, that's the beauty here. Then B'chlal, what's the issue? He's not an oinen. He's not an oinen. You're only an oinen, not you. No one should be an oinen. A person is an oinen, God forbid, on the day that his wife passes away. But we just established that whenever there is a passing, there was something said, there was an instrument, there was a clause, there was a way of halachically figuring out that they were never married to begin with before Yom Kippur. There's no aninus because he already divorced her and the divorce goes retroactive. So here is the chiddush of the Gemara. My friends, the concept of a kohen gadol not being allowed to eat ba'aninus is not because halachically he's an oinen. No. Whenever we eat kachim, the Torah says the words l'cha nesatim lemashcha. Lemashcha normally means to anoint. We're going to learn this a lot on kachim. It means that kachim have to be eaten the way kings eat. You know how kings eat? They eat with joy. When a yid is, God forbid, his wife passed away, even if halachically she was already divorced before, he's going to feel aminos. He's going to feel sadness. The sadness is what this allows him to eat. Gavaldik. In fact, the answer is the Gemara. But why do you think itrudai mi loy mitrid? Is he not preoccupied with the sadness? Of course he is. His wife passed away. So you figured out technically, halachically, she was divorced before Yom Kippur. But he was married to her all these years. He's going to feel sadness. So therefore, he's not allowed to eat. Eloma, Rabbi Yehuda is not going to be chai. She might eat it, because no one eats on Yom Kippur. Gavaldik, to be continued. That was a daf, guys. That was great.
Is this like my friend thing, the same thing they did with the soldiers before they went to war?
Oh, so that Jonathan is saying very good. That David HaMelech was the one that activated that whoever entered his army has to give a get krisus leishtoi. So there's a big debate. What did that mean? Did it mean that the get actually went into effect? Right? That's what you're talking about, Jonathan. And then if the soldier came back, he remarried his wife, or was it a get on the condition if he does not return? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but wasn't it done like that also in the Torah also?
By whom?
By all the soldiers that went out.
No, that was only David HaMelech. David HaMelech was the one that enacted that whoever goes to his army, but l'choira, that was active right away, because Kohanim Taka did not join his army because of it, because we understand that they gave a get. And then when they returned, they got remarried. Which is why Kol Omer that David HaMelech sinned is Eine Elotoya, because halach again, we're not speaking about the ethics. We're speaking about the black and white Ashes Ish. There was no Ashes Ish by any wife of a soldier in the army of King David.
But the time of being an onan is until the body is in the ground. Is that correct?
No, Baruch, not so simple. I'm happy you're bringing it up. So again, the complexity is like this. Even though I only spoke about is aninus by day or also at night, the next question is, Baruch, what happens if there was a burial on the day of the passing? So there's another debate. Some opine that it's not even the whole day. Once there was like you said, once the body is buried, aninus ended. There are others that say that the first day, one is an oinen even after the burial. This is a very important question in halacha because I'll give you a practical example. Someone who's in Shiva is allowed to eat meat and allowed to drink wine. An oinen is not allowed to eat meat nor drink wine. That's the whole 9 days. The 9 days is like aninus. So during Shiva, people have meat and wine, at least by us. I can speak about by Ashkenazim. What about the day of the passing? That's the question. So there's a machlokes over here, Baruch. And another thing that to know that when it comes to the laws of mourning, we are dafke lenient. And there are many that hold, like you said, that aninus ends by the burial. And the whole question whether aninus is at night is only if there was not a burial. But
you know, question if you're not going to be at the burial, like let's say they're sending the kfura to Eretz Yisrael.
Danny, let me tell you, just to know, this sugya is in Moed Katan. We'll learn it properly there. It's actually the Gemara that people learn when they're sitting Shiva, because it's all about this. It's not so complex, but I'm sure we'll have charts. In last cycle, I missed many daf that Danny gave. I remember that clearly. I missed a few daf in Moed Katan. And God willing, I'll learn it right now. All about, you gave it. I'm going back. You and Ronnie, you took turns. You don't remember 7.5 years ago.